Okay, everybody, welcome back. So these are the tail parts: vertical fin and rudder, horizontal stabilizer, and elevator. Just done as a single piece in each case. Where I use the plan instead of to lay up the tail and then infill it, just use it as a pattern. So these pattern pieces are cut from the cardstock just by tracing the outlines of the parts and then basically doing a carbon onto the cardstock. That is where you trace it onto your tracing paper and then flip the tracing paper over onto the cardstock and then rub that line onto the cardstock like you would back in the day with carbon paper. Anybody that's younger than 40 probably has no idea what the hell carbon paper is, but anyway. That's how you transfer the line from the plan to the cardstock, by using the tracing paper, flipping it, and then rubbing it onto the rubbing that outline onto your cardstock. And then before I cut it, I just check the lines and maybe redraw them using the French curves, just to make sure I get a nice clear line to cut to. Once you have your patterns, then these are just traced onto your material. So I used 16th inch sheet stock on either side. You see it's cross banded, so we have the grain running this way on one side and laterally on the other, and that's done on both the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical. So we have grain running this way. Here you see the grain running horizontally, and here you see it running vertically. So that's cross banding. That's to keep the piece from warping. If you put the grain running in the same direction on both sides, you can run into a curl. You can end up with a warp or a curl. Now, what I also do to prevent warp now is I also, in the center of this is a sandwich. In the center of this is an equal section of the birch ply, and in this case it's the 1/64 birch ply. So that adds a bit of strength. I mean, this is inflexible. It will not. I'm applying a good deal of pressure here, probably enough, to bend aluminum easily, and it's not doing anything to this. So, I mean, if I had an aluminum can, not a sheet of aluminum this thick, but you know what I'm saying. A significant amount of pressure, enough to squeeze an aluminum can and fold in half, and it barely flexes this stuff. So it's very strong in this layup, in this lamination. Okay, so then you sand to the profile, and one of the reasons that I like now to use the birch ply core is because it sands a lot differently than the balsa. The balsa is a softer hardwood. Don't quote me on that, but that's what it is. It's a softer hardwood, so it's easier to sand. So what I do is sand down to the birch ply core edge, because that's the true shape. The birch ply is going to be the true shape, and the balsa ends up being sanded to the birch profile, if that makes sense. So this is the actual configuration of the birch ply. The balsa, as I cut it out, it's a little bit oversized. Intentionally, I cut outside of the line as I'm cutting the balsa. I cut directly to the line when I'm cutting the birch ply. So that gives me a hard edge to sand to. And once I start, when I get onto the birch ply, it doesn't sand as easily as the balsa. So the balsa will sand to the profile that you want. There you go. All right, so we're getting closer now. Here, let me see what this looks like. So if we lay this on here, you can see we got a pretty good tight seal along the top of the fuselage. Down the back's less critical, but along the top edge there of the fuselage, where it joins to the fin, you see we got a pretty good line there. That's nice. So all in all, we're beginning to have an airplane take shape here. Right, so these are done. They need to be sanded to thickness. Well, not so much the vertical fin. There's nothing you know, there's nothing for that to fit to, but this horizontal piece has to be able to slide in to the slot here in the back of the fuselage, so it'll have to be sanded a little thinner. And I'll also take a flat rasp, a flat file, this file, and we'll just work both the top edge and the bottom edge and just widen this out slightly so I don't have to sand so far into the 16th balsa material on the horizontal stabilizer. So this will be hogged out just a little bit, and with great care taken to make sure that we do it evenly, if not even a little bit oversized, so that we can make that adjustment this way as we set the horizontal stabilizer, and make sure that we're horizontal and perpendicular to the vertical side of the airframe. So you'll see what I mean. I mean, that should be pretty clear. That's kind of a critical. We don't want our horizontal stabilizer, when it's installed, we don't want it this way or this way. We don't want it this way or this way, right? And we don't really want it this way or this way. So it's a three-dimensional, you know, check that we have to do to make sure we're fair and square when we get that installed. Once the horizontal is installed, obviously then the vertical goes on. You can't slide the stabilizer in there if this is in place, because it covers the back of the slot pretty obviously, right? That's a Captain Obvious observation for you. Right, so we have this tail surfaces basically and essentially done. They have to be sanded a little more to profile, more of a leading and trailing edge. We'll flatten out the back, we'll round out the front leading edges, and we'll taper this back here at the back of the rudder as it should look. Not too thin, you know. The core gives us a nice basic thickness. You know, the profile isn't going to be too much different from this. It will be tapered a little at the back, and it will be rounded slightly at the front, and that's about it. You don't have to go crazy trying to get this to look exactly right. You just have to make it, you know, approximate. And then once that's done, and it's painted and then bordered with the red border, they'll look pretty good, I hope. All right, so that's done. Next step is to get the plan ready, tape it down, and lay up the wing. And as soon as that's done, we'll be looking at landing gear and putting together wheel pants and wheels and all that happy stuff. And you know, it's a project that's moving along. This is where it is right now. And thank you for watching. Have a good day.